Hey, welcome. We're talking about original Medicare versus Medicare Advantage. If you're just stepping in, this is part of a series. Click up here, go back to the original, and follow on through. So, number one that sticks in my mind is Medicare Advantage plans, not in every location. So keep in mind, I'm painting with a broad brush, if you will. But in general, most of these plans are zero premium. Now it depends on where you live. If you live in a very rural area where there's not a big population, you might have some cost to it. There are some areas that don't have anything available at all. But for the most part, most people have access to a zero premium or very, very low premium plan. Now, if I'm on this side of the computer watching this video, what most agents don't understand, so therefore they can't convey to you, is why is that a plan offered by a major company out in the field doing health insurance? How are they doing that for zero? Right? Like, that would scare me. That would throw up a red flag. And if you're like me, it's scary to buy into anything that you don't understand. So that's, again, what we're doing here today. Education, education. I want you to make an educated decision. So number one, before we can go into the details of a Medicare Advantage plan, it's very, very important that you understand why that's a zero premium. So what happens is that roughly 17 years ago, Medicare said, we need to expand Medicare. We don't have prescription drug coverage. That's Part D, like Delta. And then they also added Medicare C, like Charlie, and that's what's known as a Medicare Advantage plan. So when you look at this, their Medicare C and Medicare D are approved by Medicare, but they're ran by private insurance companies. So to give you an example, you can have original Medicare that we just talked about with all the costs and things associated with that, and also go buy a separate prescription drug plan. Now, that prescription drug plan you buy has been approved by CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, but you're not buying it from CMS. You're buying it from Aetna, United Healthcare, the Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, Cigna, and on and on and on of all these different companies, right? Well, it's the same with the Medicare Advantage plan. But what happens is when these plans came out, these major corporations were talking to CMS and going, how much are you spending per month, per person, per annum, per year for the cost of Medicare? It's hard for Medicare to figure out what their bill is going to be at the end of the year, because there's somebody that doesn't have any cost, right? And then there's somebody else that is on dialysis or had cancer or was in the hospital multiple times for some heart issues or input anything else out there. So it's hard for them to budget how much they need for Medicare when they don't know what the claims are going to be. What we do know is that healthcare costs continue to rise, right? This isn't any surprise to anybody listening to this. We also know that we're living longer, and that's just a blessing in general with science and health as it keeps getting better and better, food options and hospital, doctors, technology. It's amazing what we can do nowadays. The average age that we live to is climbing up and up and up. And we live in a fantastic time in the world, which goes into finances. We need our finances to last longer than what people did 20 years ago even. So when we look at this, these big companies went to Medicare and said, well, what if you gave us a set amount of money that you're spending right now? And it was different when it came out back in the day, but these plans have been out, like I said, for about 17 years. And so if you look at it right now, the national average that Medicare is paying a Medicare Advantage plan to take somebody and run them is just over $11,000. So when you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, these companies are good companies, but they're not doing it out of just the kindness of their heart, right? They are getting paid a little over $11,000 on average to cover you for the year. So that's why it's a zero premium. They're able to take that premium and run with it, and for the most part, most times, give you more coverage than what Medicare could. Now, Medicare deems that the Medicare Advantage plans have to be at least as good as original Medicare. They can in no way be worse than. However, they can be as much better as the plan can afford to make it. Another stipulation that Medicare put on the Medicare Advantage companies is that you need to spend 85% of the money we give you back out in benefits at a minimum, or there's some penalties and some cost stuff associated to that company. And they said, okay, we can do that. So what we find in the Medicare Advantage world is a lot of people are scared of zero or no or low premiums if they don't know that. Most agents don't understand that, so they can't convey that to you. So that's why we're here to tell you that. So that's right out the gate. Knock down that big red flag, right? Okay, so we look at number 2. Most of the costs, like we said, are zero, but there's usually no deductible. There are some plans, when I say usually, somebody's gonna come on here and be like, I have a plan in Seattle that does have one, right? There are plans all over the place, and some have deductibles, some don't. In general, most of them do not have a deductible. So I like that, because meaning you don't have to spend your money before the health insurance company will start paying money towards whatever the claim. So what helps me make sense of this in my mind is a Medicare Advantage plan is a lot like a plan that you would have had at a workplace, except you're not paying any premium for the plan. You still have to pay your Medicare premiums, which traditionally Medicare A is no cost, as long as you've worked 40 quarters in the United States, or your spouse worked 40 quarters, or you're disabled. In those situations, there's no cost for Medicare A. It's an earned benefit, just like Social Security. It works the same way with the 40 quarters. Medicare Part B premiums currently are $170.10. Now, it can cost more depending on your income. There's a deal called IRMA. You're going to see my wife Abigail and partner in business talk a whole video just about IRMA and what that does. So you still have to pay that whether you're on just Medicare or whether you're on Medicare Advantage. So that's the same either way. But on the Medicare Advantage, like we talked about most of the time, there's no additional cost to that. So what is neat about it is you have, like we talked about, to me, I see it kind of like, just reiterating, like a work plan with no additional premium to that. So what I mean by that is most plans have no deductible. A lot of them have no deductible on the prescription side, which we'll cover that in a second. But what's interesting, so like let's say you go to the doctor visit, you know what the cost is. You're not paying 20% and a deductible at the beginning of the year. You know that when you go to see your primary care doctor, that is going to cost $0, $5, $10. Prices can vary based on the plan in your area. That's where you need to set with a broker that sits down and does this type of stuff. But you know what that cost is going to be. You go see a specialist, again, you know what that cost is going to be. It's $25, it's $35. It's, what we're seeing is a trend since these plans came out 17 years ago. Copays and out-of-pocket costs were one thing, and we've seen them get better and better and better and better price point-wise for you as time has gone on. The reason that's happening is more and more and more people are getting into those plans. So the numbers vary a little bit based on what survey you read or whatever, but the general consensus is about 45% of people on Medicare right now are in a Medicare Advantage plan. And that number it grows and grows every single year. So what's interesting is you go to the emergency room. Most plans, at least in my area where I'm at, we're in Wichita, Kansas. We service all over, but just out of Wichita, most of the emergency room copays are $90. Well, if you look at being on a traditional Medicare and owing 20% of that versus owing $90, that's a huge difference financially to you. Plus, you know what it is. We don't want anybody to not go to the hospital due to cost. We don't want anybody not to go to the emergency room and potentially save your life because it could be, quote, too expensive, right? That's not the goal. We want you to get the help you need. You need to get the help you need. So hospitalization, that's a big one. So under original Medicare, under Medicare A, you've got your deductible of $1,556. You also are paying 20% for all the doctor charges, and then you're paying $389 a day. Remember, days 61 through 90, $778 a day after that. On a Medicare Advantage plan, Again, we're talking about Wichita, Kansas. It varies all over the place. A lot of them, though, are around $295. That's kind of that magic number per day. And a lot of plans are days 1 through 5. So I'll give you 2 examples. On a Medicare Advantage plan in Wichita, Kansas, it's very easy. You could go to the hospital and stay in there for 90 days, 100 days, 150 days. That bill you would get might be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever that bill is, but that bill isn't coming to you. The company's going to pay all of that minus your, in this situation, $295, days 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then it stops. So in that situation, I'm going to round up and say rough math, that 100-day, 90-day, 150-day, 300-day, whatever amount you were in there stay, cost you $1,500 approximately, versus the deductible and 20% and all these extra fees, you know, and per day on the other side. So that's a huge difference. Now, flip side of that, let's say you're only in there for 2 days. Depending on what study and survey you look at, the average 65 and older person is in the hospital for 2 or 3 days. And that's because usually there's something going on. They get it done, surgery, fix it, whatever, and they want them out. They don't want you hanging out at the hospital, chances of infection, whatever the reasons are that they're looking at. If you're in there for 2 days, instead of owing $1,500 and $1,556 and 20%, now you're looking at a copay of $295 times 2, and everything else is covered in full. Well, that's a massive difference and a massive savings to you. That's one of the big differences there. Now, what is neat too about a Medicare Advantage plan is they have what's called a max out-of-pocket. Now, what's very important to realize is the max out-of-pocket is no way a deductible. Deductibles and max out-of-pocket get confused a lot. So a deductible is something that you have to pay before the insurance company starts to pay. Most of these plans do not have that. What they have is a max out-of-pocket, meaning some of them are $3,500 up to $6,700 in that range, depending on the plan. A lot of plans are well under that $6,700. In Wichita, there are a lot of plans, $3,900, $4,500, right in that range. But what's interesting about that is, let's say you went to the hospital and you were in there for 100 days or 200 days, and that bill to you was approximately $1,500. That $1,500 goes towards that max out-of-pocket, meaning once you've hit $3,900 in your out-of-pocket cost on everything you've done for the year except for prescription drugs, those are separated in Medicare all the time, then that means you're done for that year. So you know, in a Medicare Advantage plan, as long as you're going to the in-network places, or it's an emergency that's considered in-network, the closest hospital, you're never going to have to worry about spending more than whatever that max out-of-pocket is the worst. But it's important to reiterate that max out-of-pocket is not what you're going to owe for that hospital stay. The hospital stay is just its own benefit that goes into the max out-of-pocket. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, shoot us a message or an email or give us a call, and we'll be happy to discuss that on a one-on-one basis.